Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new week. So, I'm going to get right into the notes so you guys have plenty of time to work on your other stuff. But today, what I'm going to be going over is more about parallelograms, but we're going to get into more specifics about parallelograms. So, last week, you guys you worked on properties of parallelograms, so the rules of the parallelograms. And you learned exactly what a parallelogram is. So parallel, this is what I always mess up, parallelogram. So we have our parallelograms. Underneath a parallelogram are more things. So to begin with, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of a story. You guys do not need to take notes right now, but you will eventually need to take notes. So keep in mind you will eventually need to take notes, but at the moment you do not need to take any notes. Just listen to my little story here and follow along. So we've been talking about quadrilaterals, right? So we've got different properties of quadrilaterals. We have our quadrilaterals. Quadrilateral. So we have our quadrilateral. How many sides does a quadrilateral have? Quad means 4. So we know that our quadrilaterals have 4 different sides. There are a couple different kinds of quadrilaterals. So in the quadrilateral family, there are 3 different kids. So one of the kids we learned about last week, parallelogram. So one of quadrilateral's kids is parallelogram. Then quadrilateral has 2 other kids. Quadrilateral has kite, and quadrilateral also has trapezoid. So quadrilateral has their 3 kids, parallelogram, trapezoid, and kite. So with our parallelograms, we learned about different properties of those parallelograms. We are going to learn more about trapezoid and kite a little bit later. So now in your family, you have a lot of the same traits as your parents. My mom has green eyes, I have green eyes. I know you guys have talked about genetics and biology, and you made those Punnett squares, if you remember them or not. Well, in the quadrilateral family, all the kids have the same traits as the parents. So notice that parallelograms, trapezoids, and kites all have different sides. So if I were to draw you a parallelogram, we learned that parallelograms, they have their parallel sides, yes. Then we will learn about trapezoids. Trapezoids look kind of like this. They've got 2 parallel sides, but the other 2 sides here are not parallel. And then we have our kite. We will learn about kites in a few days. So the interior angles of all of these, because it's a quadrilateral, the interior angle sum, this is what you guys just tested on, is 360 degrees. So we know it has 4 sides, and the sum of the angles on the inside, so the interior angles, is 360 degrees. So this is going to apply for all parallelograms, all trapezoids, and all kites. So now, a little bit more about the family. So, parallelogram. He or she, however you want to look at it, got married and had 2 kids. So parallelogram had one of its kids was rhombus, and one of its other kids is rectangle. So parallelogram had 2 kids, rhombus and rectangle. Since rhombus and rectangle are parallelogram's kids, they have the same traits. So that means that their opposite sides are parallel, just like with our parallelogram. Our opposite sides are parallel. Their opposite sides are congruent, so when we were solving for one side and the other side. And then their opposite angles are congruent. They also had the same properties as their grandfather, quadrilateral. So not only do they have parallelograms properties, but they also have quadrilaterals properties. So then this is where things get kind of sketchy. So rhombus and rectangle, well, they have a kid, and its name is square. Rhombus and rectangle have this kid named Square. Square's mom and dad are from the same family. A little sketchy, but it's okay. So Square doesn't have any extra properties. He's just a little bit special. Trapezoid only has one child. He named his son Isosceles trapezoid after himself. Isosceles trapezoid has a few extra properties. So trapezoid then had a child named Isosceles trapezoid. Isosceles should be a familiar word to you guys. You should remember our isosceles triangles. Think back a while when we were learning about triangles. Isosceles triangles had two of the same sides. So think about that when we're talking about isosceles trapezoids in the future here. And then Kite. Kite didn't have any children. So this is the quadrilateral family tree. Just like all families, they have some issues. However, they get along and are happy together. So now, I've gone through this quadrilateral family tree. We have our overarching, our grandpa quadrilateral here. Then he has 3 kids, parallelogram, trapezoid, and kite. Parallelogram has 2 kids, rhombus and rectangle, and then they have a kid named square. Trapezoid has a kid named isosceles trapezoid, and then kite doesn't have any kids. Kite is just kite. So now what I want you guys to do is get out your notebooks, open to a clean blank page, and then take some time to copy down this quadrilateral family tree. We will come back to this later on in the week when we talk about trapezoids and kites. So take a few moments here. I'm not going to let the video continue on, so you'll have to pause it here. So the video will need to be paused here so that you can copy down the rest of these notes. All right, thank you. See you guys tomorrow.